I don't know what hurts more, my wife's betrayal, or the fact that her entire family sat in front of me and called that betrayal just a small mistake. That night, I walked into her parents' house with a strange feeling. Not anger, not fear, but the calm of someone who already knows they're about to hear a carefully rehearsed performance. The living room was brightly lit, tea on the table, fruit neatly arranged, familiar faces in familiar positions. Her parents sat side by side, an aunt perched at the edge of the couch, an uncle leaned back, arms crossed, watching me from the moment I stepped in, and my wife sat in the middle, eyes red, hands tightly clasped together, like she was the one who had suffered the most. I hadn't even sat down before her father spoke. "Sit down. We need to talk this through." I sat, not because I wanted their advice, but because I wanted to see how far they would go. Her mother spoke first. Gentle voice, carefully chosen words. What she did was wrong. I'm not defending her. But who hasn't made mistakes in life? I glanced at my wife. She kept her head down, silent. Then the uncle added, "You're a man. Sometimes you have to be generous. Every family goes through storms." I said nothing. Then her father looked straight at me. "She knows she was wrong. Forgive her. Don't destroy a family over one mistake." A mistake. I heard those words clearly. Not cheating, not lying, not betrayal. A mistake. They called the nights. She lied to me, a mistake. The deleted messages, a mistake. The late returns with another man's perfume on her clothes, a mistake. Even the child in her womb, a child that wasn't mine, was something I was expected to accept as the consequence of a mistake. I asked slowly, "If it were your son being betrayed like this, what would you say?" Silence. Her father blinked. Her mother looked away. The same uncle who talked about generosity suddenly had nothing to say. That's when it became crystal clear. Their morality only works when I'm the one expected to sacrifice. Finally, my wife looked up. "I know I was wrong. I'm just scared. I don't want to lose you." That sentence should have softened me. Before, it would have. But in that moment, I noticed something cold and precise. She didn't say she was afraid of hurting me. She said she was afraid of losing me. Those are not the same thing. Someone who fears hurting you stops before betraying you. Someone who fears losing you only panics when consequences come back to them. Her mother placed a hand on her chest like she couldn't bear the tension. "I know you're hurting. But the baby did nothing wrong. She has no way out now. If you leave her, what will people say?" There it was. Not love. Not marriage. Not truth. What will people say? I looked around that room. Every single person there was waiting for me to do one thing. Swallow it. Swallow the betrayal. Swallow the humiliation. Swallow a child that isn't mine. And smile so they can tell the world everything is fine. I could have exploded right then. I could have thrown every piece of evidence on the table. Messages, calls, transactions, every withdrawal she made behind my back. But I didn't, because I realized something important. If I exploded, I would give them exactly what they needed. They would call me emotional, cruel, immature. They would turn me into the man who abandoned his pregnant wife, and turn her into the victim. I wasn't going to hand them that story, so I took a slow breath and said, "All right, I'll try to forgive her." The entire room exhaled at once. Her mother wiped her tears. Her father nodded like he'd just taught me a life lesson. The uncle relaxed. My wife looked at me with relief and surprise. They thought I had lost. They thought I had stepped into the role they prepared for me. But that was the moment I started playing by their rules. I looked at my wife and continued, "But if we start over, everything has to be clear. No more secrets, no more unclear money, no more shared accounts being used without my knowledge." She froze for a second. Her father frowned. "What do you mean?" I stayed calm. "I mean, from today, every expense is transparent. We review all shared assets, debts, savings, investments, everything. If I'm going to forgive and continue, I need to know exactly what I'm continuing with. The uncle scoffed. You're turning love into money now? I looked at him. No. I'm turning a promise into something that can be verified. Silence again. But this time, it was different. Before, they were waiting for me to surrender. Now, they didn't know how to respond. Her mother quickly stepped in. Transparency is good. Married couples should be open. Her father didn't push further. In his mind, this probably felt like a small condition, a man trying to save face after agreeing to forgive. He didn't understand. I didn't need face. I needed time. And I had just bought it. That night, when we left, my wife walked close to me. Closer than she had in weeks. Thank you for not leaving me, she whispered. I looked ahead. Didn't answer right away. Then I said, I just want to do the right thing. She held my hand, but it didn't feel warm anymore. It felt like a rope, and I knew the first thing I had to do was loosen that rope before it tightened around my neck. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my office, opened my laptop, logged into every account, and started looking at my marriage differently. Not as memories, as data. Which money left the account? Which transactions matched the days she went to the doctor with no receipts? Which withdrawals were made with the secondary card? Which amounts disappeared right after late-night calls? The numbers started telling a story, and that story was colder than any confession. I didn't cry, didn't slam the table, didn't wake her up. I just saved everything. Receipts, statements, messages, transfers, recurring payments under my name, funding her life. I used to think marriage was where two people build a home together, but what I was looking at was a trap wrapped in the word forgiveness. And if I wanted out, I couldn't fight it head on. I had to dismantle it, piece by piece. The next morning I made breakfast like I always did. Eggs, toast, a glass of warm milk for her. My wife walked into the kitchen and looked at me carefully, like she was trying to read something beneath the surface. Maybe she expected distance after last night. Maybe coldness. At the very least, tension. But I gave her none of that. I placed the plate in front of her. Eat. You have a checkup today, right? S. She stared at me a moment longer than usual. You remembered? I nodded. I told you, I'll try. That was all it took. I saw her soften instantly. And right there, I understood something important, almost surgical in its clarity. When you play the role people expect, they hand you the keys themselves. Over the next few days, I became the perfect forgiving husband. I didn't ask about the other man, didn't bring up the betrayal, didn't embarrass her in front of anyone. No arguments. No raised voice. I drove her to appointments, asked the doctor the right questions, bought vitamins, reminded her to rest. From the outside, it looked like forgiveness. Her family believed it completely. Her mother texted me almost every day. You're a good man. Things will pass. Her father called once. This is what a real man does. I read those messages and felt nothing, because I knew exactly what they were praising. Not me. The role I was playing, and that role was doing its job perfectly. While they thought I was learning to forgive, I was building my exit. I met with a lawyer, not as a broken husband, but as a man preparing a strategy. I brought a USB, bank statements, a full breakdown of shared assets, debts, accounts, joint, and personal. A list of everything that needed to be protected. He was a quiet man. Mid-40s. The kind who studies documents more than faces. He read everything carefully. When he reached the section where her family had agreed in writing to financial transparency, he looked up. You did this before they got suspicious? I nodded. They think I'm rebuilding trust. He paused for a moment, then said something that stayed with me. You are. Just not with them. With yourself. That hit deeper than anything said the night before. Because it was true. I wasn't saving the marriage anymore. I was saving what was left of me. I didn't need anything illegal. I didn't need revenge. I just needed everything back in its proper place. Shared assets clearly documented. Separate money kept separate. Unclear expenses stopped. Access to key accounts restricted. Automatic payments that weren't mine cut off. I wasn't destroying anything. I was just starving the trap. First move. Separate accounts. Quietly. No drama. My salary went into a new account. Personal expenses moved with it. The joint account stayed, but only for clearly documented costs. Everything had receipts. Everything had reasons. Everything left a trace. Second move. Stop paying what wasn't mine. Installments under my name for things not in my house. Credit card payments labeled family expenses that led to places I'd never been. A small recurring transfer to an unknown account, nothing huge, but consistent. I didn't question her. I just stopped it. The first crack appeared on a Thursday afternoon. She called me while I was at work. "Hey, why isn't my card working?" I looked at the statement already open on my screen. I limited it. From now on, send receipts for necessary expenses. Silence. Then, what do you mean? I'm doing exactly what we agreed. Financial transparency. Her tone changed immediately. I'm pregnant. Are you really going to count every dollar with me? I leaned back in my chair. No. I'm just not paying for things I don't understand. She hung up. That night, she was waiting in the living room. No tears. No yelling. Just offense. I didn't think you'd be like this. Ihung mayaket. Like what? Cold. Calculating. I looked at her. No. I'm doing exactly what you and your family asked. If we continue, everything has to be clear. She had no answer, because that sentence was the trap they built themselves. In the following days, the illusion of peace started cracking. Not because I created conflict, but because the money stopped flowing. Her mother called first. I heard you locked her card. That's not good right now. I didn't lock anything. I just asked for transparent expenses. She's pregnant. Don't stress her out. I'm not stressing anyone. I'm just not paying for things that aren't clear. A pause. Then the usual line. Marriage can't survive if you calculate everything. I answered calmly. Marriage also can't survive if everything is hidden. She had nothing left to say. Then her father. No softness this time. What are you trying to do? Exactly what I said. Transparency. Safety. Clarity. When it's time to be generous, you start counting money. I replied evenly. When I was generous, you called it responsibility. Now I'm taking responsibility for myself. He hung up. I set the phone down. No anger. Just confirmation. When the benefits are intact, you're a good man. When the benefits stop, you become selfish. That's how you know you've touched the truth. I kept going. Assets documented. Debts confirmed. House, car, insurance all copied and secured. Pre-marriage assets separated. Personal contributions recorded with proof. No shortcuts. No noise. I didn't need revenge. I needed a clean exit. And day by day, she started realizing something. I was no longer a controllable source of money. One night, she walked into my office. Do you really have to go this far? I didn't look away from the screen. Yes. I already apologized. I heard you. Then why are you still like this? I turned and looked at her. Because an apology doesn't turn lies into truth, and it doesn't turn someone else's responsibility into mine. Her eyes reddened. You're punishing me. I shook my head. No. I'm just stopping myself from being punished. Silence. For the first time, I saw something new on her face. Not sadness. Fear. Not fear of losing love. Fear of losing security, the kind she thought would always be there. And that's when it became undeniable. Love that survives on the money of the betrayed isn't love. It's a contract. A very unfair one. A few days later, my lawyer called. We have everything. If you want to file, this is the right time. I looked out the window. Light rain. What about the child support trap? With DNA results, timeline evidence, and clean financial separation, it'll be very hard for them to push that angle. But you have to move fast. And clean. Fast. Clean. I liked those words. I had lived in mess long enough. That night, I came home early. She was on the sofa, phone in hand. When she saw me, she quickly locked the screen. That used to hurt. Now it just confirmed things. I sat across from her. I want to see your family tomorrow. She looked at me, confused. For what? To talk. One last time. Her eyes widened slightly. What do you mean last time? I stood up. You'll find out tomorrow. That night, I slept well. Not because the pain was gone, but because for the first time in months, I wasn't pretending to myself anymore. This time, the meeting wasn't at my place. I chose her parents' house. Same room. Sam table. Same people who once sat across from me and called betrayal a mistake. Only one thing was different. This time, I wasn't there to ask for permission to feel pain. I was there to tell them I was leaving. I arrived 10 minutes early. In my hand was a gray folder. Inside it, the divorce papers, DNA results, a financial summary, account separation, confirmations, copies of agreements they had signed themselves, and a notice from my lawyer. I sat down. No one spoke at first. Her father glanced at the folder with irritation. Her mother tried to maintain a gentle expression. My wife sat beside her, looking paler than before. I could tell they were starting to panic. Not because they were losing me, but because the system built around me had stopped working. Cards no longer worked freely. Accounts were no longer open. Payments no longer flowed automatically. Words like family, responsibility, and forgiveness no longer unlocked money from my pocket. Her father spoke first. Say what you came to say. I placed the folder on the table. I'm filing for divorce. The room froze. Her mother reacted immediately. Don't say that. Couples fight. You work through it. I looked at her. We already did. This is the result. Her father scoffed. What result? You promised to forgive. You said you'd try. I nodded. I did try. And while I was trying, I realized what I actually needed to do. I opened the folder, pushed the DNA test toward them. The child isn't mine. Silence. My wife lowered her head. Her mother stared at the paper like it shouldn't exist. Her father's jaw tightened. He finally said, even so, the child did nothing wrong. I nodded. That's exactly why it shouldn't start life with a lie. That sentence settled heavily in the room. Then I placed the financial summary on the table. These are all shared assets fully documented. These are separate funds clearly divided. These are expenses that were not my responsibility and have been stopped. Everything is done legally. Her father flipped through the pages. His face darkened. You planned this from the start. I met his eyes. No. At first I was just hurt. Then you told me to forgive. So I learned how to forgive. Slowly enough to see everything clearly. Her mother spoke, voice strained. This is revenge. I shook my head. Revenge is making someone suffer to feel better. I'm just stopping people from continuing to use me. My wife broke down. You can't leave me like this. I looked at her. I'm not leaving you now. You left this marriage long before. I'm just the last one to walk out. She cried harder. There was a time her tears could stop me. Not anymore. Not because I stopped caring, but because I finally understood caring about someone doesn't mean accepting being used as their escape route. Her father slammed his hand on the table. You think a few papers end this? I slid the signed agreement toward him. Not just papers. Your signatures. He looked down, and for the first time, he had nothing to say. That document, the one they thought was harmless, the one they signed thinking I was naive, the one they treated like a small formality to secure my responsibility. Now it stood on my side. It proved everything was agreed. Everything was transparent. Nothing I did was hidden. I continued, calm and steady. You wanted me to play family. I did. You wanted me to stay calm. I did. You wanted me to sign. I did. But you forgot one thing. I looked at each of them. Once everything is on paper, emotions don't decide anymore. No one spoke. I stood up. My lawyer will handle the rest. I'm not arguing here. I'm not explaining further. Everything that needs to be said is already in that folder. Her mother stood up. At least think about the child. I turned to her. I am thinking about the child. A child deserves truth. Not a man forced into fatherhood by shame. Not a family built on deception. And not a man turned into a wallet and told its responsibility. She slowly sat back down. I looked at my wife one last time. You can hate me. Your family can call me cold. But I won't spend the rest of my life in a trap just to protect everyone's image. Through tears, she said, "You loved me." I nodded. I did. Very much. And that's exactly why I won't turn that love into a reason to destroy myself. I picked up my jacket, walked to the door. No one stopped me. Maybe because they knew there was nothing left to hold me with. No money to pull. No documents to trap. No fake morality left to hide behind. No more just forgive her, it's a mistake. Because their mistake had a price. I opened the door. The air outside was colder, but cleaner. I stepped out. Each step felt lighter. Not because I had won, but because I was no longer losing just to be called a good man. I got into my car, placed the folder beside me. For the first time, it didn't feel heavy. Those papers weren't wounds. They were an exit. I glanced at the house through the rearview mirror. Still lit. Still full of people. Still full of stories they would retell. In ways that benefited them. They might call me selfish. They might say I abandoned my pregnant wife. They might say I was too cold. But I knew the truth. I didn't abandon a family. I walked away from a trap. I started the engine. The car rolled forward slowly. As the lights behind me faded, I realized something. The best ending isn't when they apologize, or when they admit they were wrong. Some people never will because admitting it costs them too much. The best ending is when you no longer need them to understand. You just need to understand it yourself. That forgiveness doesn't mean staying. That calm doesn't mean weakness. That being a man doesn't mean paying for someone else's consequences. And sometimes, the strongest move isn't slamming the table. It's smiling, playing by their rules, then using those same rules to walk away, quietly, cleanly, with nothing owed. I drove forward. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't thinking about what I lost. I was thinking about what I kept. Myself.